We're ready to go.
Okay. Okay, you guys are going to love this. I was just upstairs working on a video, and I got a text that said, "Here." And that's all it said. And I remembered a guy talked about me looking at a jet ski, and he had said something about a mower that he had. And so, although the text was about 8 or 10 minutes old, I thought, okay, he's here. I hope I didn't miss him. And I went running outside, and this is what I found. So, I guess this is where old mowers go now. Now, I haven't even looked at it yet, so we're both getting a look at this together. I don't know much about it. It's a 6.5 Briggs & Stratton, 190cc motor. Good looking motor. Looks a little old, looks a little beat up. Kind of interesting. They didn't spend much time putting stickers on this one, or the stickers have gone away over the years. It says Snapper right here. So, I guess we're going to get a look at her and see what we've got. Now I know I'll regret this, but I've got to pull the cord. If I pull the cord and get crunching noises, I suppose I'm done now. Sounds pretty good to me. What do you think? Yep, that has carburetor problems if I ever saw carburetor problems. So let's get this ugly old guy in here and see what we can do with her. Okay, we let her run for a few minutes to see what she sounded like, and it continued to lope along just like it was. It's trying to idle and not quite idling. So I can see two possibilities here. Either the main jet has just got a little bit of a clog to it and it's not getting the fuel it needs, or it's got a spring that's just simply fallen off or is put on wrong. You know, Lord knows I see enough of these where it's put together incorrectly. I did notice that it's got what appears to be drywall screws holding it. Yep, it's a drywall screw holding the cover on. So we can probably improve on that a little bit. But he said he got this from his neighbor, and we sure can't complain about a free mower that almost runs. So let's get her apart and see what we've got. Now I'm looking at the linkage, and it doesn't appear to have been fooled with. The spring does appear to be awfully stretched out, more so than I would expect. But let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and start her up and see what we've got. Now we can watch the linkage in action. Now there is a possibility this spring is stretched out and no longer doing its job, but I don't think that's the case, and everything's moving freely. So what I think's happening is she's not getting enough gas, or, oh goodness, or the second possibility, the gas that's in it is exceptionally old. Okay, let's get this guy apart and see what we've got. Let's see now. Got the fuel line pinched. Let's pull the air filter cover off. Don't want to lose any screws. Okay, I know I say this a lot, but For God's sake, take pictures. It'll save you a whole lot of time later. This looks really easy when you stop and look at it here, but when you're putting it back together, you may have had it apart for a day and you really don't remember how all the springs go. In this case, it's easier than it looks because this spring rides with this piece of linkage, and this spring, well, it is attached to this. We're only unhooking this one so that we can have a better shot at the linkage when we're taking the carburetor off at the end. Okay, so now we've already got the fuel line pinched, so let's go ahead and take it off the carburetor. Okay, there we go. Easy peasy. Now this looks hard to get to, but it's really not. It's a straight line on both sides. And this one, well, it's underneath the bracket. It's still pretty easy to get to. Okay, now the only things that are holding us on is that one piece of linkage and that little bracket on the top. This is our little governor for this one. We'll leave that just like that. And now all we have to do is take it off right here. And she's free. So let's take her to the bench and clean her up and see what we've got. Okay, this won't take long at all. What we're going to do, first thing we'll do is start, First thing we'll do is start warming up the cleaner. And we're using, in the ultrasonic cleaner, we're using pine sol and water. You can thank the lawnmower lady for that, because she knows the combination that won't turn the carburetor funny colors. But it's a safe bet that this right here is the problem. Different carburetors have different jets. This one in particular, it's part of the bolt that holds it on. Now we probably could have gone ahead and just cleaned this jet up and put it all back together, and it might have worked fine. But we don't know how long this has been sitting. We don't have much history on this mower, so it doesn't hurt at all to go ahead and give her a good head to toe. You know, run the whole carburetor through the cleaner and make her shiny new again. So we're going to pull the float off. I said we're going to pull the float off. Huh, that float doesn't want to pull off. Definitely a candidate to be cleaned very well. The float is stuck. A little pin stuck. Come on, buddy. Don't see that very often. You won't see a pin just that hung up. Probably going to be putting this thing back in with a hammer. There we go. If you look inside the carburetor, it looks pretty rough. As you can see, she looks bad. So let's go ahead and put everything in and clean her up and see what we've got. Okay, now after a trip through the ultrasonic, she's improved a little bit anyway. She's still kind of ugly. There are cases where you just want to throw the carburetor away and replace it, but I think we can save this one. So let's grab some Christmas wire and run it through the jets. I can see a tiny bit of daylight through the jets, so it's pretty close. So we put that in a little hole and run it through, and it runs through that way pretty good. Let's run it through from the top. Well, and I felt an obstruction when I did that, but it did push through. Run that way again. Now I'm going to blow on it right here to make sure it blows out the little holes on the side. And it kind of sort of does. So that should just about do it. It should go back together and it should run. Now that everything's been loosened up in the bowl, we can go ahead and wipe her down and get anything loose off of it. Remember, the carburetor looks a lot nicer, but you're not so much worried about looks as you are about functionality. Let's run the gasket back around the outside. Okay, don't want to forget our little washer that goes here. We don't want to create leaks. Oh yeah. Let's put the floats back on. Now we're not sure how we feel about that. So what I'm doing now is making sure there's no little pieces of corrosion like there are all over the rest of the carburetor in our float area. We don't want the needle to stick, because then we'll have a flood for sure. And once we get the pin back in, once we hammer the pin back in, we'll see how cooperative she is. We'll see if she runs freely. Okay, I can see the pin on both sides. The float appears to be moving freely, so now what we're going to do is blow in this while we move the float up and down and make sure that it's not sticking. Make sure that it does stop it and it does allow it to flow free. Yes, and just swinging it back and forth. It's moving well, so that tells us everything's running pretty free. Because you do get a little lubrication from the gas, but not nearly enough to make a difference. Let's get the bolted seat in. Our little gasket. Come on, buddy. There we go. And not quite over here. There we go, there we go. Now we'll start the nut, because the nut will be nice and it'll give it nice even pressure. Nice even pressure is our friend. Oh, we're not quite centered up here. There we go. Let's try it right there. Okay, let's get the bowl back together. Ugh. Come on, buddy. There it is. I'm a little more uncoordinated than normal this morning. I'm going to take a look, make sure our gasket's not hanging out anywhere. And it's not. Okay, we go snug on that, but not crazy tight. You want it to be tight enough where it prevents leaks around this. But remember, leaks around here are protected by the O-ring. And if the carburetor is working correctly, the gas level will never get high enough to leak through this top edge. Okay, let's carry her over and put her back on and see what we've got. Okay, let's get this back together. Now, first thing we're going to do is attach the little linkage at the top. Because if you remember, that's the order we took it off. And again, pictures are your best friend here. Good pictures of all this make life a lot easier. And we'll slide it in place. And we'll put that just half a thread in, and it should hold still. Now we're going to go over and attach the bolts. Now this one's actually sealed with a gasket. I'm sorry, with a rubber O-ring, not a regular gasket. So it makes it a little bit easier. You just have to slide it on. There you go. A little bit fumbly, but it's going. We get the fuel line in place. The fuel line has plenty of room. So now with one screw on, we'll go ahead and attach that. And I'll go over to the other screw before we tighten this one. And since we got the first one in for alignment, and it's not a gasket, it's a O-ring, we can go ahead and snug them up. And there we go. Oh, come on, buddy. And we're done. Let's go ahead and get our gas line back on, and then we'll put our linkage back together. And there you go. And we might replace that gas line before we're done. So now with our linkage, if you took a picture, then you remember that this goes right here. And this slots into that on the carburetor. Everything's moving freely. We'll put the other spring on. Up. Come on, buddy. There you go. Now let's put the air filter back on. Air filter is probably the fumbliest part of the whole thing. This is the one part where I wish I had 3 or 4 hands. But we'll get one screw aligned. Then we'll get the vent aligned. There you go, that wasn't so bad. Get one screw mostly started. Get the next screw mostly started. And notice we're not tightening them down until we have them all in. That way it won't get caught at some cockamamie angle. Get the next one started. Nope. There we go. And then we put this back in and we're done. We'll go ahead and put some fresh gas in it. Toss the lid on it and go start it and see if she won't start. Now I've been pretty lucky the last couple of 3 or 4 mowers. Everything's been starting on the first pull every time. So let's hope we keep that streak alive. Now for the big drama. First pull. Oh, nothing. Okay, while we were doing the carburetor, I found that the drive belt had come off. The drive belt looked okay, but it just fell off. And she didn't start on the first pull, but she started on the second or third pull, and I'll take that. That's a win. So, this little mower is going to get a new job. Looks like she needs a new gas cap. We can probably get that at the store. Yeah, it's pretty broken. So we'll throw a new gas cap on her and we're going to put her for sale just like she is. This one's never going to be beautiful.